Hey guys, DPG here, talking about something very important and also something that's very near and dear to my heart, and that is ADD or ADHD and acting. So I have been someone who has had ADD all of my life, and you know, I used to think, oh, it's not real, what's the big deal? Even though I was kicked out of, I don't know, 2 or 3 different schools, even though my grades were terrible and I had huge problems focusing and concentrating in class and was always getting in trouble, always in the corner, always in detention. I mean, it was just nonstop, probably a living hell for my parents who couldn't understand this stuff. And, you know, eventually, fairly recently, I came to accept that ADD is a real thing. And what it is, this is something that's a very ADD type of thing. I came up with what I really believe is the definition for it. And what it is, it's really someone's inability to control what it is they are thinking of, and the ease of which your brain detaches from whatever the focus is intended to be, you know, based on what society wants you to be thinking of at that moment, or maybe even the person you're talking to wants you to be thinking of at that moment. And your brain is just going off and doing its own thing. So it's really your inability to control what your brain is thinking about at any given time. And it's a real thing, and it's a huge thing, and it's tremendously debilitating because society is wired to have people focusing on things when they should be. And, you know, for good reason, I suppose. Like, it would be hard to get things built and done if the world was full of people with ADD. I mean, we would just leave unfinished projects all over the place because we're kind of like building something, and then something about what we're doing reminds us of something else, and then we go, oh yeah, and then you're like over here and you start doing this other project and you've left this other one behind. And that's really what ADD is you just, without somebody constantly reminding you to do what you're supposed to be doing, you just can't stay focused on it. And so rather than get too far into, you know, how society maybe should learn to adapt better or adapt to people's strengths better, I just want to make this video so that an actor, somebody who wants to be an actor, first of all, can believe that they can do it, and how you can overcome some of the difficulties that ADD would naturally bring to your life. So, to me, one of the natural things that's going to get in the way of an actor with ADD is just the ability to focus and memorize, because you've been convinced you can't do it because, you know, you've lost focus so many times, and you kind of get this self-perpetuating fantasy going where you're like, I know I can't do it, so why should I bother? And you're thinking of that while you're trying to do your lines, and of course, therefore, you forget them because you're telling yourself you're going to forget them, because part of your brain is, you know, your ADD brain is just naturally distracted by everything. And you've also got the self-fulfilling prophecy happening at the same time. So it's pretty brutal. So what you have to do to overcome it is don't bother trying to overcome your natural tendencies to think you can't do something, or your natural tendencies to lose focus, and start to just practice focusing. And start with small amounts of text and work your way up to larger amounts of text. I started out where I couldn't memorize one single line because I was just like blank. I was like, wait, I don't even know what I'm doing here. I would just go blank. And if that sounds familiar, then hopefully this will help you. So what I really suggest you do is you start with the story of what's actually happening, even if you only have one line to memorize. And just say to yourself, this is the story of, right? So it's easier when there's a story and it's not just you're memorizing a thing. If you have a story, then it means something. It's got some emotional connections to it, and that'll help your brain stay focused because emotion is powerful. And so tell yourself the little story of what it is that's happening, and just act your way all through it, okay? Like, read it as, act all of the parts, act the narration, just trying to bring it to life. And start small, start with 1 or 2 lines, and then move up to bigger and bigger projects. And eventually you will find that you get so involved in the project itself that that's where you want to be, okay? So rather than fighting your brain, you're actually riding along with your brain. And so it's not going to be trying to get out of what you're doing right now because it's bored with it or it doesn't enjoy it. It's into it. So you have to really get into the story. And then once you're in there, there's much less likelihood of your brain trying to escape, okay, and trying to take you off on tangents, because it kind of essentially does what's important to it. So when you convince yourself that this is important to you, you will probably stick with it much more so. And if you just practice this, you will get to the point where you can learn pages and pages of material because you have that enthusiasm and that prioritization of the material you're working on. So I don't know, try that. Let me know what you think. Give me a like, share, subscribe. Please subscribe. Got to get those subscriber numbers up. And check out teespring.com/hackhollywood if you want to get some super cool merch. Otherwise, guys, that's it for now. I will talk to you soon.